Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right.
I myself am strange and unusual. Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven, you guys. We're so happy to have you here.
Yay. I'm shuffling some cards.
Starting off. Yeah, just shuffling some cards, just starting it off.
Yes, lovely.
How was your week?
Well, I was going to say lovely ASMR with your card shuffling. I love that sound.
Yes.
So
Good.
Wendy's just shuffling her cards. She's going to be pulling us an oracle card today, so that's exciting. And what's up with me? I really wanted to just boast this new fun game I found. I know I've been doing probably too much gaming lately.
Me too.
But I found another game. It's called Coffee Talk. It's like this indie game. They kind of classify it as a visual novel. And it takes place in this fantasy version of Seattle where there's mer people and orcs and they're all really kind of modern personas, kind of just maybe a lesbian lady orc who's kind of butch, and then you've got this alien characters, vampires, werewolves, and you're the owner of a coffee shop that's only open after the sun comes down. And so everyone kind of comes in and they all have these interesting stories or problems and drama. You have this one regular character named Freya. She has short green hair and she looks kind of like Bulma from Dragon Ball Z with her short hair. And so the art is super 90s. It's got chill, lo-fi hip hop in the background the whole time. So I've just been chilling, serving coffee to these little creatures, learning all their stories. I love it.
That is so cool. And what platform is that on?
I'm sure it's on multiple platforms because I just downloaded it on the Switch. I wouldn't see why you couldn't play it on PC or probably even PlayStation or Xbox. As far as I know, it's not on the phone, but it very well could be because it's pretty simple. But it's really fun. This one werewolf guy will come in and he's like, I know there's some sort of drink that has ginger in it that can help me to not transform in the full moon. And so you kind of have to figure out what the mix would be over time. You get more ingredients. And it's just real cute. Just real cute.
I love that.
So I've just been gaming. What about you?
I've been doing a lot of gaming as well, but still just sticking to Stardew Valley. I found out that you could get married in that game. So I was I gave a bouquet to some person and
who did you choose?
Dating and courting each other.
Who is it? Which character?
This guy named Sam. It's funny because he's a kid and I'm a kid. I didn't realize how young I am in the game.
Me neither. What?
And so we're both these young people. And he asked me to meet him at outside of his house at night. And so I went over there. It was kind of later in the evening. And he says, he's looking around, making sure nobody else can hear or see us. And he's like, well, why don't we just sneak into my bedroom and I'll talk to you about, I have something important that I need to tell you and ask you. So I thought he was going to ask me to go out with him or something. Well, his mom starts coming into his room and he tells me to hide because she would get mad if she could see me. So I hid in his bed.
Dang.
Mind you, we're talking about a video game here.
Right.
I hid in his bed and she can't see me. She talks to him. She leaves. And then he's like, phew, we made it. And then he looks at me and he goes, what did he say? Oh, the game gives you a choice. Do you want to get out and talk to Sam or do you want to stay in the bed? And I picked stay in the bed.
Ooh, this is saucy. I think I need to play Stardew Valley.
And he came into the bed with me. And then the next thing you know, it does this little cut scene where it just shows pretty things. And then it pops up to his face and he says, I'll never forget this night, not ever. I was like, oh my God, I think I just did it in a video game.
Whoa.
I just thought it was funny because this is a pixelized game, you guys. If you don't know what Stardew Valley is, it's just all pixelated, small little characters.
Yeah.
And I'm a teenager.
I've been watching
Who
people
owns a
play on
flag.
Twitch since we last talked
Mhm.
about it, and I saw that it's like multiplayer, and I was like, oh my god, me and Wendy need to figure out how to play this together.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that they're doing like a witch version of it coming out sometime soon,
Yes.
so that would be like
Yeah.
amazing to jump on that bandwagon.
I would love to play that. I can't wait until it comes out.
I really love that you're like gushing about the romance aspects. Like, I'm such a weirdo. I've always been the same. Like, I love Mass Effect for that reason. Like, there are cutscenes that are just like you work towards by like building these relationships with certain characters, and it's just
Right.
like so
Right.
fun, especially when you have like an
Yeah.
option. Because a lot of times it's just kind of like bland with like Mario or Link, and they're already involved
Right.
in this one relationship, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I do play a lot of like anime games.
Yeah, I'm like,
For
yeah, tell me
PlayStation.
more.
So I'm definitely into that. Like,
Mhm.
and you always have magic in those games, so they're definitely my favorite.
I
Love
saw
doing
a
that.
lot in the store because when I was looking for Coffee Talk originally, I literally just like looked for romance games because I was just like,
Mhm.
let's have a cute little romance game to see what's
Mhm.
available. And like, it's mostly all Japanese kind of games. And so I
Right.
could totally see how that floods the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this
It's
one
a lot
called
of
like
fun.
Dream Daddies that I want to say is not Japanese made, but like it
My
basically.
daughter plays that game.
Okay, so you're aware. I was like, am I gonna really be able to invest as a dad myself and then romance another
Right.
dad? Like, that's the only reason I didn't get that one. So maybe I
Mhm.
should try it. But I saw how there's like a goth dad, and like that's just like,
Yeah.
ooh, I want to talk to goth dad.
And in our house, we're Steam game players, so we have a Steam account. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's
Mhm.
like, this might be boring for all of our listeners, but it's exciting to me. But it's like this platform where you can download all the games, and it's basically just a gaming platform. So I use Steam. I've got tons of games on there.
Yeah, I
And then
usually
we have
get my Sims on there.
Well,
Video
let's pull a
game.
card. Okay.
Oh, should we
I'm gonna pull an
transition?
oracle card. Yes, let's transition into an oracle card.
Okay.
Okay, so the card of the day is, actually, I should talk about my oracle pack. It's the universe deck. So basically it's got all these beautiful sayings on it. I'm trying to connect with this deck because I don't connect with it very well. And my goal yesterday was to kind of make my cards connect with each other in a way that I can just mesh them all together into one giant deck so that I could give a very good big giant reading.
Yay, I'm so glad you're trying it.
Yes, and so I found out that this particular deck, it doesn't want to mingle with the rest of the cards. So I decided today that I just wanted to maybe give it some love by sharing it on podcast, so maybe it knows that I do care about it, even though it's not my favorite deck.
This is great.
And
We're like bribing your deck.
Yes.
Okay, so happy to be a part of this process.
Yes, and so my card is attack, pain, fear, judgment, and any form of separation are merely calls for help. That's what it says on there. And the picture is this purple sky kind of crying onto a white background. That's what it looks like. It's sad. And so it's basically just saying that attack, like when you're attacking somebody, whether it's verbally, mentally, physically, pain, fear, judgment, and any type of separation are just calls for help. So when you're separating yourself from reality.
I don't know how to take that advice. Is it telling me that it's a cry for help, so I shouldn't do those things? Or is it telling you need help?
Yeah, I don't know.
I see why you don't connect with these cards now. I'm all confused.
Yeah. I'll do the second one.
Yeah. Let's get a clarifying card.
Okay, so the second one is a black background, and it's white in the center, and there's a picture of a beautiful owl with a purple stomach. And it says, I do whatever it takes to get closer to consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
I feel like those are really good companion cards to something because it's like so direct. Like cards like that, I think would be good when you're like, okay, what does this layout mean? And then you grab that and it's like giving you specific, and maybe it would tie into the larger message of the other cards.
Exactly.
Like you said that you tried that and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, it wasn't working. I did find, however, that I could mix all of my other cards together and use these ones separately and just throw them in. And it worked. So I got a couple of books, and one of them is called The Power Tarot by Trish, MacGregor, and Phyllis Vega. And this one, it has like over 100 spreads in there that you could use. And I ordered it because at first I was thinking it was just going to give me the spreads, but it gave me a little more insight as to how to read the cards, which I've never
formally studied, right?
Yeah, I've never really formally studied. So it was some good information. But I found in here that they had a spread where you could read for your animals, read for your pets, which I thought was really interesting because I've never even thought about reading tarot for my animals.
Yeah, that's a cute idea.
And it was very sweet. So I intermingled the cards, used these ones too. And it was interesting. It was just in a way that said, you know, what does your pet need right now? What are they thinking about? And it was basically all I'm ever thinking, honestly, is that my pet is constantly thinking about food. She's hungry all the time. All she ever wants to do is eat. And I know that. But in the reading, it told me all she really wants is love and companionship. And it kept showing all these pictures of a person sitting with another person, just sitting and holding each other. Oh. And I was like, so basically, she just wants my love. And that was so sweet.
There's definitely some small dogs I feel like that are very needy and clingy and like in the cutest way possible.
Yeah.
So I love cuddle dogs. I'm excited to see what else you turn out and learn from your book and keep us up to date on like the different spreads you're doing. Like an animal spread sounds really cool. Like my dog is super lazy and I think she picks it up from me because I mostly just lay around and either read, write, play video games, watch TV. Like I'm just chilling. And so right now she just looks so lazy, just turned over like on her back with her belly up and just in the bed. And I just wonder what's going on in her head.
She's like, love me.
Always wants a belly scratch.
Yes. I did do another reading too. I did one for our house to see how the house is feeling. So I thought that was really interesting. They had it basically the way that they did it in the book was for you to read as if your body is a house. But I was like taking it literally and wanted to know how my house was feeling.
That's very Marie Kondo of you. Like get the energy of the home through the cards. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. To see where we were lacking and just kind of get a different connection. So it was really interesting. I liked it a lot. I highly recommend doing something like that. It gave me some insight as to where my house needed the most protection. It actually told me in the cards that my back door was where things enter and leave in a spiritual realm, that I needed to protect it more.
That's awesome though, to clarify.
Yeah, it clarified that information for me and I was pretty excited about that.
That's so smart. I love these new ways to use the tarot. Like, I think I'm only ever using it for myself or for my friends. And like, that's pretty much it. We just want to all know what's going on with ourselves. But to look and read your environment, including your family, your pets, and your home, that's so cute.
Yeah, I had never thought of doing that. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to share this with everybody.
Thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah. I was just going to say, I feel like mixing the cards has been really fun, and I started doing that since I got the Moonology deck, and then I think it's the Lightworkers deck. They just both had this like very blue and purpley like tone to the cards that I thought they would look good together, because I felt like a deck of just moons is kind of stagnant, but when you put it together with other types of artwork, you really build and weave this whole awesome story. And I can't wait to like keep doing that and just, I don't know, keep expanding that practice.
I know. I just see us doing it together too. Like I've got mine, you've got yours, and we're intermingling my cards, your cards, and we're just doing this great spread. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like.
I know. Last time we did it over like phone conversation, it was really we like not collaborating, but corroborating each other's and building on each other's, and it all made sense, and it was so fun. So we have to do this in person after this dang quarantine.
Yes. Hopefully that will. Well, it'll end when it ends. I'm not going to say hopefully it ends soon because I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, me and my games are doing great.
I was like, I've read 2 books this week, which is more than I've read in a while.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Which reminds me, my other book that I got is called The Way of the Cartouche by Murray Hope. And I found out Murray Hope is just this really cool woman who was kind of innovative in Egyptian magic. And she believed that she was a star seed from, um, I forget. Oh, from the Leonid, uh, the cat people, the cat
The
aliens.
Lyrans or the Lyrians?
Yes, yes.
Oh my
So
gosh! So she thought like in another life she was one of these?
yes,
Oh,
and
I
she
love
had
it.
a big calling. So what was awesome about her is she was born in the 1920s. So imagine back then, I didn't even remotely think that back then they would have belief in this kind of thing. I guess I always thought it was a new age spiritual nowadays kind of
This
thing,
is
but
so
she
cool.
you're like, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I came across this book just because I thought it was going to teach me how to read oracle cards better. It did say the way of the cartouche, cartouche meaning oracle of some sort. And it had these Egyptian writings on it. Well, I found out that this book um, is more than just that. And so I started reading it, and I immediately was drawn to the fact that she talked about the different Egyptian gods and goddesses and different things. And she had a list of these different items. And I immediately, from the moment that I read one sentence, telling you that I was 2 pages into the book, and I immediately went and grabbed paper and made my own oracle cards.
You were just so inspired, or what was
I was
happening?
inspired. Yeah, it was just like all of a sudden I read her words and it made me want to make my own oracle cards. So I made them based on just the words that she provided me with, like the name of the gods and the name and that. And I looked it up online just by like, I wanted to see what the Egyptian symbols were for each of these gods.
Like
And
the
then I drew them.
hieroglyphs?
Yeah, the hieroglyphs. Thank you.
Yeah.
I so I wrote them all down on paper, and in my mind I was like, they all need to be a different color. So I used different colors. Well, as I got further in the book, this is how I am as a human. Like me as a person, I jump to conclusions quite often. So I was just like, oh, I'm going to go do my own thing. I read one sentence in a book, so I already know everything. But had I gone further, I would have she gave all the information in the book about what symbols you should use and what colors you should use. And to be honest, mine were almost spot on.
I was gonna say, did you just absorb the knowledge by like touching the book? Is this a power you've gained? Because that's like a definitely a mancy in one of the claromancies.
I think that I hate to see I could do that, but I've been able to do things like that before in the past, but never thought about it and never questioned it.
Yes, we have
That's
to
why
test it.
that's why I'm so good at my job and how I was able to find out how to do my job so well in my off podcast life, because I just picked up a manual and held it in my hands and kind of knew the knowledge. But
Whoa, you can't just move on from that. I will not let you. This is incredible.
I think I can only do it sometimes. I don't think I can do it all the time.
Still, like, this is really, 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 really freaking cool, and just goes to show you like how powerful your energy receptors can be. Like anybody, you know, this is really fun, and I am curious to try to see if we can think of all the ways we've ever done this sometime. Not right now, but like, dang, I'm intrigued.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I do have to say that I can't wait to use these cards. The cards that I made are specifically for me. I'm not supposed to share them with anybody.
It's a secret.
I mean, I can show them to people. But I can't let other people touch them, because I guess the images on them, the images that were used, are for me and the gods. So it's got my energy and the energy that I put into it from the gods and what they gave into it. And so I'm not supposed to intermix these. And that's what the book kind of talks about, is how these cards are specialized, that they hold so much energy in them. And it told you that you could find out where you're at in your life, that kind of thing, or who you are. And I thought that it was interesting because I could actually feel the vibrations coming off of the cards. And I did this exercise where I sat down and I was just meditating and breathing in and out. And I could feel the vibrations. And I pulled 2 cards out because it said that the cards would connect with me once I held them and did this exercise. So I did the deep breathing, pulled the cards out, turned them over, and I got the card of water. and the card of Thoth.
Nice. This is so cool hearing your process of like making these and just having that knowing that it's a secret knowledge. You know, sometimes that's how magic is. It's just between you and your deities. It's a very personal paranormal experience, you know, that's like
Right.
only reveals itself to you in that moment. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I love hearing your process. So what happened after that?
So I was like, well, what does air and Thoth mean? So she does explain in detail in the book. And basically, both air and Thoth had something to do with healing abilities, speaking with the dead. And there was a couple of other things that were really, really good. Obviously, water being a conduit. And so I was like, oh my gosh, all these things really speak to me. It was really touching.
Yeah,
really touching.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I wanted to share that, and I hope one day you'll get to see my book and my cards too.
I know, I saw them in your video and they looked really pretty. Yeah. I can see why you got that book. Like the cover was just calling you in, you know?
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting because after I had done the whole process and read the book and everything, I went on and it turns out there is a deck of cards that she created, and it had printed like maybe 3,000 were in the deck. And they were supposed to come with the book.
3,000 cards?
Yeah, just 3,000. Like she only had 3,000 decks printed.
Oh, so they're hard to get a hold of.
So they're hard to get a hold of, yeah. And so they were made in the late 80s or mid to early 80s. This book was made, and so when I went on, there was one deck being sold and it was like $300. I was like, thank goodness I made my own.
Dude, that sounds like a really fun score, like something to watch for on eBay. See if we can refine it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's manifest that shit someday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any other amazing stories for your week, or do you want to get into EVPs?
Let's do some EVPs, and
So I feel like a lot of the times, for me anyway, these last couple of weeks when I've been getting EVPs, they were so subtle or happening exactly while I'm talking that you couldn't really hear it. This time, my last experience editing, I was able to actually hear it pretty well, even though I'm laughing, I think, right before or during, but I got a pretty crisp EVP. So I wanted to share that one with you, and I know you had some to share with me, so.
Yes. So let me listen to it. We'll drop it in, but I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah, so
for the first time.
This EVP, I can't remember what episode I was editing. I think it was the healing herbs and magic episode.
Okay.
And a lot of times when Wendy and I are recording, just for new listeners, we get weird voices and we're paranormal minded. So maybe we think we're hearing EVPs, but I really feel like they're EVPs, damn it.
I think they are too. And I like that. I mean, right now we're able to record in a fashion where I can mute my side and listen to your side or vice versa. And that helps me in determining if we have an EVP, because while I was going through editing this morning, I was like, oh, this sounds like an EVP, but I realized it was either just me breathing sharply because I sound like an asthmatic half the time, or it was, I know, it sounds so funny, right? I know, I'm like, oh, I sound like a sloth. What is that?
That's funny.
But I'm editing and I can tell. So I'm excited to hear this. Okay, we're gonna play this one for you guys.
Yeah, just a heads up. I included like what I was saying right before, because to me anyway, it feels like the EVPs are responding. So I think I'm saying something and then I laugh and you'll hear a voice. After that, I just hit the voice amplified.
Okay.
I think 3 or 4 times afterwards. So just so you can get a sense of what was going on.
Cool. Okay. I'm excited. So
I'm too lazy. Tell me why though. Okay, did you hear it?
Yes. So it said, I can't tell what it says. I gotta listen one more time.
Me too.
So
I'm too lazy. Tell me why though.
You're not. Maybe it says you're not. You said I'm so lazy though. And maybe it's saying you're not.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Like, if you just hear just the voices.
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
It's like my ghost is like giving me little confidence in the background.
I love it.
You're not lazy. You got this.
Oh, that's great.
So that's what I heard, and it definitely wasn't you.
Right. That's
because
not me.
I was no. But it was from your side, I want to say. It was from your audio side, so your house. Right? Yeah, that's how I got it.
That's so cool. I love that. So my ghost was responding to you. How could they hear through my headphones?
Oh my god! Wow. Okay, now it's unbelievable. How did he hear through those headphones?
Oh, I love
okay, I need to find yours.
So I found 2 EVPs when editing the Skinwalker Ranch episode. This first one, we're talking about something, and I swear it sounds like it's responding to you. And this one came from your side. It's like 8 seconds long. So I did the same thing as you, is that I amplified it, or I played and then I put it afterwards and amplified it. So we'll see what you say. So here's this next one.
This makes sense that it's convoluted. Okay, I can see how that one does just sound like breathing.
Okay.
But I don't think you've ever, or I've ever sounded like that on mic.
To me, it sounds like...
So knowing it's just you and me.
I felt like it was saying, yeah.
And we're talking about Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah, you said, we were talking about the paranormal and how sometimes things get all convoluted. People, yeah.
And then it's like, yeah. So that's a weird anomaly for sure. I'm having a hard time hearing it, but it's not us, that much I can say.
Right. Maybe I didn't make it loud enough. I'll have to do that before I drop it in. Before we drop it into the episode, maybe I can make it louder.
This makes sense that it's convoluted. I just keep listening to it over and over. I'm intrigued. I'm like, I can hear you.
That's right.
Bitch, I can hear you. Okay, so I get into it.
Okay, so this next one, I don't know what it says. I would really love your input on it. I can tell you it was definitely during the Skinwalker Ranch episode as well. We're talking about something, and there's this in-between noise, and I don't know what it is. This one gave me chills.
Ooh,
and it's from my side. It's from my side.
Okay, mine's loading. All right, ready?
Yep. Skinwalker Ranch are very close to that parallel.
Okay, so it's this larger overarching area of paranormal.
Right.
Oh God. Ew, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Why do you hate it?
That's the second EVP we've gotten that's like really creeped me out.
But
because it does legit sound like a little whisper of like a man.
It's responding to us, and then it's like making that thumping noise.
That's not you?
I don't think so.
Like, it's hard to tell when you're just hearing, because it does just sound like a thump, so I would just assumed you moved your desk or something, but you listen to the audio, so I think you would have told a difference. Right. That one freaks me out a little bit.
What do you think it says?
Let me listen to it again and try not to cringe. Okay,
all right,
we'll just cue up just that part. Oh God. I just hear ribbit.
Oh.
That's not it.
No. I can't tell if it says right now or something horrible.
Oh, because like right in the beginning there is a little click where it's like tick, like that could be right.
Right.
Ew. gross. Don't be so demanding. And we don't, what were you saying beforehand? What were you saying?
I have to, just a second, let me see. Oh, I was talking about the 37th parallel and how Skinwalker Ranch is really close to that.
Okay,
so maybe it was like right now it is.
So what if that's aliens? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, maybe that's why I got the creep factor, because it wasn't ghost this time.
Yeah, because it's like, how can we go 1 minute?
That's a lot to take in. Yeah.
Okay. So those are our anomalies that we captured this week. We'll see what happens this episode, if anything. Yeah. I'll let you know.
That's right.
I feel like I have a story that kind of goes hand in hand with today's main topic, which is I found a news article that goes into an actor having alien phenomenon.
Oh.
So the movie Aliens, the Ridley Scott movie from the 80s starring Sigourney Weaver, there's a guy who plays one of the shipmates. His real name is Yaphet Kotto. It plays one of like the asshole characters who kind of gives Ripley a hard time. That's all I can kind of remember. And I think he dies by like getting hung by chains. Like he dies somewhere down in the basement of the movie. One of the first or second deaths. But he's had encounters with actual UFOs and aliens most of his life, starting from when he was just a kid. And he had so many experiences. I found this right before we started recording, so I just kind of have an article here. I haven't had a chance to go through or edit anything out, so just sorry in advance if it goes on. But I'm pretty sure these are interesting firsthand accounts of what he witnessed. Ooh. So I'm just going to get into it. The first one, he says in his words, it started when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I'm being grounded in the house for coming home late from school. I remember being told I couldn't go outside, so I would look out at the streets at my neighborhood in the Bronx, watching the kids play stickball. I get tired of watching, and I turned to leave, and standing right at the edge of the doorway of my room was a figure of what we now call the Greys. When I turned around, the Grey was behind me. It was at least 5 or 6 feet tall and with an elongated head. It appeared, then jumped to the back of me and disappeared. He leaped out of the way like he didn't want me to catch him. I looked down the hall and there was nobody there. I went and asked my grandmother if anyone was in the house, and she said no, just you and me. But he never forgot that. And as I got to be a teenager and an adult, I realized that holy shit, that was an alien. So that's just his first encounter. So gross. I don't know why. Like, I love E.T. I think he's very endearing, but on the whole, I think all the X-Files marketing has made me really hate alien Greys sometimes.
Right. You're like, no probing.
Yeah. So I just feel like you can't trust them and they'll do experiments on you kind of thing.
Okay.
So his next case, at one point, I remember being at my home at 6 p.m. I went into my office in the garage to meditate and I saw something. This sounds like you.
Yeah.
I looked at it for about 5 minutes and it was light. I was wondering why the neighbors were shining a light through the top of my garage window. So I went to talk to them. Now, keep in mind, I had been sitting in the car garage for some 12 hours and I believed that I contributed to those things that were flying above my garage. I couldn't call them things. They were aircrafts. As I got older, I understood what they were. I went through my youth, however, not knowing what I was experiencing. Therefore, I didn't ever talk about it. I was just experiencing something, and I would file it away until something larger happened. This is the thing about UFO witnesses that they don't talk about. Every time I moved into a house, above it at some point, there would be a circle of what looked like smoke. I'd wonder where it came from because it sure as hell didn't look like clouds. Those sightings continued for a good 10 to 15 years. I've also had time loss. I have a big loss of time between some of those moments, and I'd often wonder where I was taken.
So he's an abductee.
He thinks he might be. Yeah. And the idea of just like him being in his garage and meditating for like 12 hours and then feeling like he called them, what does that even really say about him? Is he a star child or star seed, you know?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Oh my gosh, 12 hours. That's a feat. That is a lot of meditation. I don't even think I meditate for that long, but dang.
Right. His quote just says he was in there for 12 hours, so maybe he was doing other things. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
several other of his cases though. So this next one says he
Okay.
was in his office. It was one evening in the Philippines. He heard his wife and the waiter calling me to come outside in very anxious voices. So he went out, and when he got there, he saw huge circles of smoke over the house. And when I asked them what they saw, they said they saw a UFO, big as the Yankee Stadium, and it was turned upside down. They were freaking out. And then 2 or 3 nights later, he saw it. The thing bolted out the entire sky, blotted out the entire sky. So that means it's massive. It
That's
blotted out the
huge.
moon and everything. Yeah, it was huge. And he says he just remembers saying, Jesus Christ. I mean, I got so nervous, man, because you don't see something like that without being vulnerable to becoming psychologically blown away. You get scared, to put it quite frankly. And that messed me up for a good 3 or 4 days.
Longer, I would say. Jeez. Wow. That's
Yeah, that
intense.
would freak me out. Yeah, I get freaked out just seeing like videos of supposed candle balloons floating away. So
Right. Right. That's funny.
So he says he was not sure how to classify these experiences at first. They seemed to follow him wherever he went. When he was younger, it was all really confusing for him because he wasn't sure how to process it all or who to turn to talk about it. So he also says he's had them follow him around. They would show up in places wherever he was at. At one point, he was getting ready to run with my assistant in the morning in the Philippines, and he got up, went outside, and he hadn't gone very far when one of the aircraft showed up. His assistant freaked out and said, "Look at that!" And I said, "Yeah," and kept moving. It followed us around, and she ended up telling all of her friends. The next morning, when he got ready to go out, he sat down and began to really start to disbelieve it. And he was like, you know what? If 2 show up, I'm going to believe it. So when he went out, sure enough, 2 of them show up the next day. And it was 3 that showed up the next. So these things have a mental like link with him if he's just making these bets to himself and then they come out and top that.
And they're responding, and he's most likely saying this stuff telepathically. So they're responding.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, they're responding to his thoughts. So,
ooh, and they want to show themselves to him. Really weird stuff. He says that he believes our purpose is to make sure we don't kill ourselves because as Earthlings, we're losing our rivers, our lakes, mountains, and our caps are melting, and we need to take a serious look at what we're doing, and they're going to help us do that. So
they must think
I think
that
it's
he
really
can get
cool.
a message out. Yeah.
Maybe because maybe that's what it is. And I thought that was a really cool story. I mean, it just so happens that someone who was in a movie about aliens saw actual aliens. Like, that's kind of like, actors, they are such manifestors. They get into this mode where they could be having a connection with something their whole life that they even up manifesting, like the roles in conjunction with the paranormal,
Right.
It follows them, that energy, those stories, those archetypes of aliens.
What a cool find.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him.
I know. I would love to see if I could find any interviews of him. I think that's a lot of the information that I just laid out right there. But I want more. And he even says, he's like, I have nothing to gain from this. I'm not writing a book or a tell-all. I have nothing to gain. I get my people by being a good actor. He doesn't want to gain any kind of notice for being a guy who has UFOs following him his whole life.
Right.
So it's not something that he feels like he has any reason to lie about. So I believe him.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. So shall we move on to today's kind of main topic?
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
So today I kind of wanted to have just fun with my research and not get into anything too serious. I don't know. Maybe this is serious. There's death involved. How to frame this? We're talking about cursed film sets.
Yes. Haunted Hollywood.
So as far as cursed film sets, when I was looking into this, I remember watching interviews as a kid and those True Hollywood Stories and all that cool stuff in the summer where they just go into the history of all the bad stuff that would happen on certain film sets. And so at first I thought maybe I was looking into hauntings, but these are actually more like curses that the movies themselves maybe had some sort of juju attached to it. And maybe it was like all the energy that they're creating because, you know, you're acting, you're in these weird mindsets, you're making horrible story kind of telling, that you're like invoking that energy.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting to examine what's going on with these supposed curses. Is it all just a marketing scheme? You know, it's very interesting history to me anyway. I love film history, and to look at all the crazy shit that happened while making these movies.
Mhm.
I mostly am focusing here on like the paranormal highlights, or the curse, I should say, effect highlights. So today I wanted to start with The Exorcist,
Okay.
which has been a huge classic, definitely one of the scariest films of the 70s. It was the highest grossing horror film until like It came out, the new remake of It.
Mm-hmm.
Super iconic. And for those that don't know, it's based on the book The Exorcist that was written by William Peter Blatty. And his book is based off of a real life demonic possession that we did talk about in our Possessions and Exorcism episode, I think, briefly.
Yeah.
But it was just like a boy who may or may not have been possessed by a devil, and it got a lot of news coverage, and the Catholic Church ended up granting him an exorcism. And so that's how this whole story really came about. So it is tied to some reality. I don't really know if I believe in exorcisms. It's something I go back and forth on, but I do believe in like people having the power to manifest like light and good energy and to cleanse and get rid of things. So, you know, I shouldn't just not, I don't know, discredit just because I'm not like into the Catholicism lore and all of that.
Right.
So the author who actually was researching for the book, he did a lot of research on exorcisms and like all these Catholic traditions, and he even interviewed Father William Bodern, who was the Judas pastor who actually performed the real life exorcism. So he took it really seriously, and he ended up kind of changing the names of everybody in the book just to make sure that it was to protect the boy and his anonymity and everything like that. And the only one who was really closely based on the real life person was the priest character in the book, was apparently really closely related to the actual priest that he was working with and interviewing. And while he was writing the book, he apparently had supernatural events happen in the house he was writing in, like things levitating in the air, which that may or may not be true. You know, that's just one of those things where I feel like I read in one article, but in interviews with him, he never mentioned anything about that.
Yeah, you think he would.
Yeah. That's why I had to just footnote. I don't know about that one, guys. But apparently, the Catholic priests were in complete agreement with the idea of this movie. Unlike most like demonic movies, they were like, "Yeah, no, this is great. You're showing priests in a good light. That we have power to defeat evil. You're also like kind of preserving our traditions. Like we're here for it. So you make this movie." But everyone like who worked on the set, the cast, the crew, they all had this weird feeling on set, and that there was like this darkness surrounding them. There would be really weird incidents that started taking place. The first incident was around 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning when a fire just randomly broke out. The fire is said to be started by like a bad electrical circuit, but the rumors also said that it was just a bird that flew into a circuit box, which sounds horrifying.
And that was just on the set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just burst into fire. So they were like, they had the set of the house, you know, where the exorcism takes place. Everything burnt down except for the room where the actual exorcism was being filmed, which is really weird. Everything else was destroyed, and this basically shut down filming for 6 weeks, and they had to construct everything again from scratch. And this set filming back, like they just had so many things that kept setting them back on their schedule, causing them to go over budget. And then in New York, one of the carpenters who was working on this, he accidentally cut off his thumb on set. One of the lighting technicians lost a toe. So like people are putting in blood, sweat, and tears into this project, literally, in limbs.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it sounds like everyone working on the film actually faced really extreme working conditions, and some of it seems to stem from the director and his style. Like he's really harsh, and he's trying to like get the best shit that he can get on camera, like terror and fear and all this extreme emotions, and he's going to extreme methods to get them. Like he would just shoot a gun off randomly on set before shooting to freak everyone out and get their eyes like dilated and their hearts racing. Like I feel like this movie needed an HR department.
Wow.
Yeah. And the guy who played one of the Father Karras in the film, his name is Jason Miller. One day he was just out walking about, and he was approached by a priest on the street. And the priest gave him this medallion. And he said to him as he handed him the medallion, "Reveal the devil for the trickster that he is. He will seek retribution against you, or he will even try to stop what you were trying to do to unmask him." And this just like went down in history as one of those like things like, was this a warning that they were stirring up evil by making the movie?
Wow.
But there was actual bad stuff that started happening. Like all the weird special effects that they did back in the day, this is all pre-CG. This is one of the reasons why I love this movie. Like it's all practical effects, and a lot of it was not really that safe. So the actress Ellen Bernstein, she plays the mom of the young girl who gets possessed. Last time I watched this movie, I realized that that is the actress who plays Suki's grandmother from True Blood. And I got like super excited. So it's like young her. Anyway, so she had this rig around her waist that was just tied to a rope on her back. And it was like she was, I think, getting hit by her daughter, and she's like flown back. And so all they did is they had the stunt coordinator just yank her back on her, off of her feet into the floor. And that's all they were doing to like get this weird paranormal effect. And so they got one shot and they said it looked good, but then the director wanted another one. And she goes up to the director and she's like, "Hey, this really hurts. I think I'm going to get seriously hurt if we do this again." And he's like, "Look, we need to just get one more shot. We need to look as realistic as possible. Let's just do this." And she's like, "No, I understand that, but I could really get hurt. This is too much." And then like she sees the director give the stunt coordinator like a look like, "Okay, don't pull so hard." And she like turns to her back. And I found an interview of her saying where it's like, as soon as she turns her back, she says, "I just felt them give each other this kind of like look, like they're saying just like, yeah, whatever, eye roll kind of thing." And so these men are just kind of disrespecting her and they don't give a shit. And the director just says, "Give it to her." And the stunt coordinator's like, "Really? Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, pull her, give it to her." And so the next shot, the stunt guy pulls her as hard as she can, and she's pulled off of her feet, lands horribly on her back, and she lands on her coccyx, which causes a permanent spinal injury, and she's still affected to it to this day.
Oh,
and the messed up part about it, it's like this is in the final cut of the film, and when you see her getting thrown back and she screams, the mother, that's a real life scream. She's like, "Ah!" Like she's in pain. And the director who's there, he's behind the camera operator, he's like pointing down at her, like telling him, "Get in her face, this is the shot, get in her face," as she's screaming. And so then they have to cut away right after that because she's like, in real life, this isn't funny. She's not acting. She's like, "Turn that the fuck off. Like this hurts." And she was pissed that like the director was using her real life pain to get that shot and wouldn't stop to call like a paramedic.
I feel like that happens in Hollywood often.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of mistakes, and some actors, they'll just like hold the scene and they'll keep going, where others are like, "No, fuck you." Right. Like one of the scenes in Lord of the Rings where Aragorn is like kicking an orc helmet, there was just like he was just supposed to kick it and like get mad, and then in the final cut of the film he like kicks it to camera and then he's like, "Ah!" and like falls to his knees in like anger. And the reason the director was like, "Oh, that was so good, I loved how emotional you were," and he was like, "Yeah, I broke my fucking foot like kicking that helmet to camera." So like definitely it happens on set. So I don't really know if this is a curse or just one of those things like you're saying. Right. But then you have Linda Blair. She's playing the young girl, and she has to go through all these extreme things, again, filming this movie with practical effects. And she's in an extreme, like, doing extreme things. She says in interviews that, like, she was just so young, it was very mechanical, that the director would just kind of tell her, "Hey, now you're going to grab this now you're going to grab this cross and, like, just thrust it in your crotch." And she'd, like, giggle and be like, "I'm not going to do that." And he'd be like, "Yes, you are." And he would just, like, tickle her and giggle with her until she would, like, convince her to do it. And I was like, this sounds really creepy, dude. So, again, I'm like, where is HR on this whole Hollywood situation? Right. And not only that, so she had 2 hours of makeup towards the end of the movie when she starts getting more fucked up, and she would do 2 hours of makeup every morning, and the glue would like burn her skin. The weird things they had her do, like the levitating scenes and the throwing up scenes. And there's another scene in the movie towards the end, I feel like, where it's so cold that every time that they're like doing a prayer to say like the power of Christ compels you or whatever they're saying, like you can see the breath come out. back in the day. They didn't have the CG to just add
Right.
breath. So they were literally filming for days and days and weeks on end in a freezer room. And poor Linda Blair was only in a nightgown and underwear. And so that was like really, really bad for her. The other guys at least had like a full priest garb, you know? So it was rumored that she actually started having a nervous breakdown while filming the set, just dealing with everything that she was going through.
She hated that movie. I read that she really hated that movie. That she
Really?
Yeah, that she had such a horrible time. She didn't even want to talk about it. She didn't want to talk about her role for a while.
You can see why, because after the movie came out, it fucked with her life.
Yeah.
There were people who were blaming her for, like, they're saying, you're so into this demonic stuff, you're spreading this demonic message, we want to kill you.
Mhm.
Like, Warner Brothers literally hired bodyguards to follow her from her home because so many people were sending her death threats and hate mail. So you could see how
She's
it
just
affected
an
her life
actress.
forever. Yeah, I feel like by now,
Yeah.
in the later interviews, she's turned it around. She's vegan. She's using this whole
Right.
her horror crown almost as being like this innovator of the film genre as having a platform, and she has like an animal charity now. So I feel like she's doing a better job dealing with the trauma of the past, you know, and kind of turning it around.
Right.
See some more fucked up shit. It kind of escalates from here. Ellen, the Suki's grandmother, I should say, who plays the mother, she says, I don't know if there was a jinx, really, but there was something strange going on during the making of the film. We were dealing with really heavy material, and you don't fool around with that kind of material without manifesting it in some way. There are many deaths on the film. Linda's grandfather died. The assistant cameraman's wife had a baby that died. The man who refrigerated the set died. The janitor who took care of the building was shot and killed. And I think overall there were 9 deaths during the course of the film, which is an incredible amount, and it was scary.
Wow. That is huge. 9 deaths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 actors who were scripted to die in the film also died in real life during the post-production.
Wow.
And yeah, the other were just the cast and crew members who died of unexplained or natural causes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is the significance of the number 9? You know, like that's pretty creepy. So at that point, the director was like, okay, let's get the guy who's being our priest consultant to do like an exorcism on the set. And he was like, well, I can't exorcise a set, but I'll bless it for you. So like he blessed and cleansed the set for them. And nothing else happened after that. But the rumors and like all these half-truths have really surrounded the film for years. And this last one is kind of one of those rumors that probably isn't true. The actual demonic voices that are in the movie, they are saying that they came from a cassette that was a recording of an actual exorcism performed in Rome. And the director says that he does have tapes of a 14-year-old boy getting exorcised, and it's in Italian, but he never claims to have put it in the movie. But he does say that what you hear is based off of that, so very much inspired by. And so some religious people are like, look, it's just too intense. Watching that's going to conjure something, you know what I mean? So people are just too freaked out.
Yeah.
And when it did come out, it was really shocking for people to see back in the day. It had its first screening in Rome, or I should say the first screening in Rome. The theater was actually between 2 churches, and on the day of the screening, there was this rainstorm and lightning, and a 400-year-old cross was struck by lightning, and it fell right in the middle of the plaza.
Okay, so that's probably the coolest part of it. I hate to say that, but it's like, seriously, of all the things that could have happened, that's the biggest thing. I would call it a synchronicity, if anything, that the universe was trying to say something.
Right, because it's like shit happens when you make movies.
Right.
But this is pretty, what? Right. Like, are you kidding me, universe? What are you saying?
Yeah.
So that is definitely a synchronicity.
Right.
And
all the deaths that happened, that's pretty intense. Usually, I mean, I've never heard it. Well, I shouldn't say never, because I think you're going to talk about another story where I know that other deaths occurred.
That's true.
But
it's very weird how these 2 movies are linked in that sense, in a lot of senses.
Right.
I don't think I even mentioned this, but like with all the setbacks, they were shooting this movie for over a year. Wow. Over a year shooting exorcism scenes and sequences. Like, How fucked up is that going to put you? You know what I mean? You're going to be tired.
Yeah.
So they really put a lot into this movie. And when it opened, there was a lot of stories just breaking about audience members fainting and needing to call paramedics and people vomiting in theaters. And the hype around the movie kind of helped fuel the record-breaking box office figures, they say.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first horror picture to be nominated for the Best Picture Oscar. And like it really went on to make history. And I do think it's a great movie. I really enjoy it, and I don't know if I really believe in it being cursed, but it is. There's something there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, are they conjuring this bad energy by pretending that bad energy? You know what I mean? Are they manifesting it?
I mean, you could say that about a lot of movies, right?
Hmm?
Even music. So, I mean, every word has the power to manifest something. So yeah, they could be manifesting something. Depends on if they were manifesting with intent.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I feel like this might be a long episode, but I do have another
Yes.
movie to get into if you are down for a long episode. So I am glad I only did 2 movies today because originally I was going to try to fit in 4, but I picked these 2. They have a lot of similarities. I'm going to talk about the Poltergeist series next,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite movies. It's like similar tones as far as like a young girl who's getting fucked with by the paranormal. I'd say this one is a little more lighthearted. It's not as creepy or dark. There's not as many disturbing shots by any means. It's more like the family Steven Spielberg version of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a pretty big hit when it came out. There were 2 sequels, so 3 altogether, and I'm going to talk about a mix of history that went on with all 3 of these movies. So the curse idea kind of stems from the death of multiple cast members that died during and soon after the filming of the series. And the curse is actually rumored to stem from the fact that they used real skeletons on the set of the first Poltergeist movie.
Which they didn't know. The actors didn't know in the beginning that those were real skeletons.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was her name's Jo Beth Williams. She plays the mom, and has this scene where she's like swimming in a muddy pool of skeletons. And she did not know, like you're saying, that they were real, which is kind of messed up, you know? Once again, these damn men are putting women in horrible situations. So apparently back in the day, they didn't just have fake skeletons. This wasn't a thing, which to me just seems so odd.
Mm-hmm.
Living in a world where every store during Halloween time has all the things Halloween.
Right.
So they got the actual human remains from Carolina Biological, which is a medical science supply company that sold human skeletons that was used for medical schools back in the 80s. I can't believe that was more common and more cheap than to actually just try to make them.
Right.
So that's where this whole curse stems from. It doesn't seem like enough to really start a curse, but at the same time, what does it do to a person when you're using human remains to make a movie?
Right.
You know?
It wasn't for medical purposes, which a lot of the people whose skeletons are donated, they know in advance, I feel like, that they're going to be donated when they die.
Stuff like this makes me regret being a donor. Like, I just want to like call the DMV and be like, you know what? No. Unless I'm going to be like in a shot where you can see my skull, I don't want to be in your movie. Yeah, I know. You know, now that I thought about it, I would love to be in a horror movie.
It would be fun.
With my skeleton, just my skeleton. So on set, there was one incident that kind of stands out that they tied to the curse. It's when the boy of the movie, like the brother character, he gets kind of messed with by a creepy clown toy. I don't know if you remember that at all. Okay, so his name in real life is Oliver Robbins, and there was one day where he had to film a sequence where he was going to get choked by the clown, like under the bed, and in the way they had to do it was again practical. So apparently, practical effects were very dangerous to these poor actors. and the clown had this extended arm that they would put around him, and he had to act backwards, and it was a tight confined space under the bed, and so the contraption ends up getting caught around his neck. And he said that Steven Spielberg specifically saw that and in the video like playback screen, and he pulled him off of it and got him away. And he's like, I don't know what would have happened otherwise, because everyone else thought I was acting and being really convincing, but Steven saved me.
Right.
So go Steven Spielberg.
He was literally probably going to die.
Yeah, so that would be really traumatic for any kid, to be in a scary movie and have a creepy clown like almost kill you. Another rumor that circulated for many years was the fact that the actress JoBeth Williams, again the mom, that after she would film, she would tell people in interviews, like, I would get back from filming and I would go into the room and all of the pictures in my house would be tilted, and after straightening them I would come back the next day and they'd be crooked again. And for the longest time she thought this was like Paranormal Activity. Years later, she recanted it, being like, I think it was just me, like, shutting my door and them offsetting. So this one, I don't really know where it lies in the whole grand scheme of it. Right. But she did begin to think in the moment, like back in the day, that someone was trying to send her a message that she shouldn't be filming this movie. So she kind of like took it as a paranormal thing.
Right.
And all these oddities kept occurring on the set of the sequel. There was this actor named William Sampson. He plays this mystical Indian in the movie who's like a shaman, and in real life he just happens to be a badass shaman. And there was a day where he just like kind of got fed up with all the weird juju and the rumors and the curse, so he delayed production for hours to perform a Muskogee Indian blessing to clear the set of evil. And I thought that was pretty badass. Very he's cool. Just doing what he needs to do. And the actress JoBeth, she was like, you know what, the nervous feeling on set disappeared after that ritual. So everyone kind of felt better on the filming of the second one. I'll say the second Poltergeist is definitely not as good as the first, but it is watchable.
Yeah. It's still decent. I mean, there are parts that are but yeah.
It feels like a made-for-TV movie, kind of.
Right.
Then there are the victims of the curse, so I'll kind of start listing those off. There's the actor Richard Lawson is the one that kind of got away. He played one of the paranormal investigators. His name, I think, in the movie was Ryan. He was in the first Poltergeist movie. He was the one who would like pull on the ropes and throw the tennis balls through the portals and was like helping everybody all the way to the end. I think the other investigator like ditches because he gets scared of meat that's crawling on the counter. Good old Poltergeist. Yeah. So he almost died but got away. So he was on an airplane. And I think he was going to be just in the regular seats in the back. And then someone recognized him as an actor. And they're like, yo, come up to first class. And so he moves up to the first class. And the flight actually ends up going down in a crash. And everyone who was in the back, 27 people died, including the man that was in his original seat. So if he hadn't been bumped up to first class, he would have never like made it.
Right.
So that guy, they say that he escaped the curse. Mm-hmm. And then there's the actor Lou Perryman. He didn't play a lead role in Poltergeist. He was actually just a construction worker who's in the first film, I think maybe watching football or like one of the scenes. And he ended up getting killed and murdered. This crazy man who was on the run in 2009 broke into the actor's house and just started hacking away at him while he was sleeping in his bed with an axe. And that was just some crazy thing that happened to him. He said it was a random thing. And he's like, I just needed a car and some stuff. So I broke into this house and killed this man. Like, it wasn't a personal attack at all.
Just an off chance that it happened to be him.
Yeah. So I don't know, is that linked to the curse? Yeah. And then there is, of course, the main little girl actress, Heather O'Rourke. And she played Carol Ann. She was in all 3 films. I feel like she was the poster child of the films with her, like, she kind of has, like, that black-eyed children look to her. She's just so cute and innocent, but kind of creepy. So she was 6 when the first one came out. And she was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease in 1987. And then, sadly, the following year, she fell ill, and everyone just thought maybe she had the flu. But then a day later, she collapsed and suffered a cardiac arrest. She was airlifted to a hospital, a children's hospital in San Diego, but she did die during an operation to correct a bowel obstruction. And it was later believed that she had been suffering from congenital intestinal abnormality. And so that was really sad. And this happened after she finished filming the third one. So she
Right.
had already filmed it, and I
But it
think it
hadn't been
was
released yet, I don't
had
think.
not been
Yeah.
released. Yeah, you're right. So that was really sad to hear that she had her life cut short.
Right.
And I would hate to think that a curse killed her. Like, that's just bullshit. It's just sad.
Right. It was a really sad situation.
And then the actress who played her sister, her name is Dominique Dune. She was also taken by tragedy. In 1981, she started seeing this guy named John Sweeney, and he was a chef at this trendy restaurant in LA. And according to court testimony, he was abusive, jealous, and really an angry man.
Very
And they
obsessive.
fought.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you know
I
this
know this
story
story
well.
very well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this pisses me off because apparently they fought
Yeah.
constantly and he would beat her savagely. And there was like a really particular violent fight where he strangled her
Hmm.
and he even jumped on the hood of her car to keep her from leaving. So after that, she somehow got away and she ended their relationship, but he would not take no for an answer. So he ended up apparently carving a chocolate mask of Dominique's face and then hand delivered it to her door, and they start having an argument, and then right then and there he just strangles her into unconsciousness on her driveway. And in an interview by the cops or whatever questioning, he said that I killed my girlfriend and I tried to kill myself. He actually put her into a coma and she ended up dying shortly
Right.
after.
Hmm. But
So
then
that's
he
fucked
was
up.
never sentenced for her murder.
He was actually sentenced, according to one source, 6.5 years, but he was released
He
after
was
3
released
years.
and he came to Oregon.
3.
Yeah.
What?
He came to Oregon, changed his name, and started
Gross.
dating other people. And poor Dominic, it's Dominic Dunn. Her father actually tried to warn everybody afterwards that dated him. So he followed Mr. Sweeney story or
That's
wherever
so
he
sad.
make
I
sure
mean,
he didn't do it again.
that's very sweet and enduring that a dad was like, he needs his justice and he's gonna keep trying to save other people's little girl kind of
Right.
thing. But it's sad
Mhm.
too. It makes you think like he didn't move on or he didn't get his healing that he needed, you know? Like that's
Right.
just such a tragedy.
Yeah.
I would hate to think that a curse would just take these people's lives.
Right.
It's messed up because they're just so young. The other two victims I have were a little bit older of the supposed curse. The actor Julian Beck, he played the creepy preacher in Poltergeist 2, and he had actually been battling cancer all throughout the filming of the project, and he died just before it premiered. So
Right.
there's that.
Just before.
I'm getting a little sad. And then there was the actor, right? There was the actor Will Sampson, the guy who played the shaman, and he had to go do this heart-lung transplant. It had a very rare survival rate, and he actually did not make it.
Yeah, he didn't.
So
make
he
it.
died during that. Yeah. So that is the curse of the Poltergeist. Kind of sad. I don't know really if I believe in these Hollywood curses, but if there's one thing you know about like creators and artists is they tend to be more on the spiritual side. They're more open to those energies. So you kind of have to believe them when they're saying that like a film can create and manifest these kind of energies. And
Right. I have to say, so Poltergeist was one of my favorite movies, and I remember little Heather O'Rourke that I had a friend who looked a lot like her, and so she was kind of like an idol to my friend, and so when she died, it was kind of a big deal. Like we were around the same age, so when she died, I was like, that could have been anybody. That could have been my friend because my friend was striving to be an actress even when we were young. So, yeah, it was just
wow, that sucks, man.
It sucks. I remember Teen Beat did a big article on the curse. Go back to Teen Beat from the 80s.
Oh man, if only you had that. That'd be cool if you still had that issue of Teen Beat.
They were.
I wonder how they covered it.
They covered it by saying that poor little Heather, that she got so sick that her skin turned blue. She couldn't breathe properly. It was more than just, now we know what it is. We know it's that bowel obstruction, but at the time, Nobody knew what was going on, and she went back and forth to the doctor, back and forth to the hospital. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with her. And
I'm like, did you do a damn X-ray? I guess, like, who
don't
knows?
know.
But
That was the 80s, so I don't know.
yeah.
But on set, they were also saying, I remember in TP, I have to go back to that TP. So
I love this.
You
Yeah,
don't,
this is good.
I don't know the validity of any of it, but that clown doll also made noises on the set without it being touched.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so I do remember that. I thought there was something else. I don't remember.
There probably was, because I'm sure closer to the time there were either more rumors or just more on the pulse of what was said to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But going back now, it doesn't seem like there's that many paranormal instances as there are tragic synchronicities.
Right. Yeah, and back in the 80s, I feel like we were high on alert with the whole with all the stigma from people being in cults. Like, we were coming off of the cult phase, and I feel like everything had to do with devil worship back then. So it was like, anytime a movie like that came out, it was, you just believe in the devil and you want to worship the devil. And so all these other stigmas were wrapped around it. And it just made people's minds go into a dark place where it really didn't need to go.
Yeah, that back then there definitely was less to consume. So when something came out that was like this, there were more eyes on it, and there were more people aware of it, and they just wanted to shut down anything that had like negativity or going against a message.
Right.
You know, like, for God's sakes, I remember back in the day, people would try to burn piles of comic books telling children they're too evil.
Yeah. Or regular books, for that matter.
Regular books. Yeah, so stuff like The Exorcist and the Poltergeist, there was a big stir and a big commotion.
It's just like when they used to say that, if you play this music backwards, you're going to get a message.
Oh, like John is dead?
Yeah.
I think it's the Beatles rumor. And I think there's some Led Zeppelin rumors about them having demonic messages in their music, but they were cultists, and so maybe that was public knowledge and people were just being assholes to occultists, as they usually are.
Right. Ozzy Osbourne's music was the same way. I remember them saying that if you played his music backwards, you could hear devil chanting.
Really, guys? But you know, the times.
I'm glad that you chose this.
Oh, good. I know it's something I thought about, like, talking about for so long, and I figured, hey, this is fun. I don't mind researching a good haunting, but I really didn't find a haunting. I found these curses and rumors, and if there's one place that will not get magic or the paranormal right, I feel like that's Hollywood.
Yeah.
I feel like Hollywood's always putting a weird negative fear spin on these types of things. So if these are the type of articles I'm getting the information from, so it's really probably not true.
Sure.
Yeah, fun historical, like, legends of Hollywood for sure. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all I have for today's episode. Anything to top us off?
Nothing on my end, just love and light.
Yeah, we'll be here next Wednesday with another fun episode. In the meantime, you can always go find us at either of our websites. We're going to be at cousinscoven.home.blog for all of season 1 and our older episodes, and you can find our new stuff on Podomatic or anywhere else podcasts can be found. You can also find links to our merch down below if you're interested in just supporting the Coven and helping us, just pay for some of our website hostings. And we've got articles and blogs and a newsletter you can sign up for on our website as well.
Yes. And thank you guys for joining us, and may you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and joy in each other. Blessings to all.